Elijah, and it's based on letter of James, where James writes in the fifth chapter of James, verses 16, 17, 18. The prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. The prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. And then the very next verse says, Elijah was a man like one of us. He prayed honestly, it did not rain for 3 years. It did not rain. Again, he prayed for it to rain, and it rained. So let's take these 3 verses and see how amazing it is. After talking about righteous man's prayer is powerful, next verse, the Lord talks about to James, Elijah. Elijah. Now, the word righteous basically means justify. And the Old Testament time, as even today, we are justified by faith. Abraham believed God and was reckoned to be righteous. And as we, New Testament, put our faith in Jesus, we are justified to go to heaven, justified to be God's children, simply because we put our faith in Jesus. He is our justification. So same Old Testament and New Testament. Justification is because we believe what God has spoken. And we read about Abraham. He believed God and was reckoned to be righteous. Genesis 15, chapter verse 6, and many verses like that. And therefore, Elijah was a man like one of us. When God spoke to him, he believed. We're going to see the way God worked through Elijah, as he worked through us also. And Elijah as a person, how being human, how we respond to certain situations. And we can easily identify with them. Whenever people sulk and get into a sulking mode, they will see even Elijah sulked. He was like us. And it's true that he was a human being. We're all human beings serving an extraordinary God. We are men and women of a great God, not great men and women of God. And we identify with Elijah in the way he responded to certain situations. We look at that today and realize that we can learn so much from people like that. In fact, the whole Bible. It says in the book of Romans, 15 chapter verse 4, for everything written in the past were written to teach us, so that through endurance and the encouragement of the scriptures we'll have a hope. And I look at Elijah's life and I get so encouraged by the fact that he was a man like one of us, but yes, God used him extraordinarily. And after being used by God extraordinarily also, his humanity comes across so clearly as read the 17, 18, 19 chapter of First Kings. We'll go to the 3 chapters. I'll take a few verses here and there. And we're going to see how we can identify with Elijah, be encouraged by his life, and learn from how God used him and how he responded to certain situations. Now in Hebrews 13 chapter 7 it's written, Hebrews 13:7, remember your leaders who spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Imitate their faith. You don't imitate their style, their way of talking, but imitate their faith. And everyone in the Bible did what they did under God, by the leading of the Lord, by faith. 11th chapter of Hebrews lists all these wonderful men and women of God who did great things for God by faith. And Elijah is no exception. And we are called to imitate their faith. There are so many examples in the Bible about people who served God by faith. Also in the contemporary world, today also there are many people you can learn from, whose life and ministry was entirely by faith. Now we look in the life of Elijah. He had tremendous faith that came to ministering to other people, doing the will of God, ministering to other people. But unfortunately, when it came to his own life, his own walk with God and response to situations, his faith was in a way lacking. And we're going to look at that today. Now, if we look at 1 Kings 17 chapter, Elijah is from Tishbe, a place called Tishbe. He goes to Ahab, who's king in Israel. Ahab was a very ungodly king. There are actually 40 kings in the Bible, in the Old Testament, apart from David and Solomon. 20 kings were of Israel and 20 kings were of Judah, were capital in Jerusalem. Out of the 40 kings, only 8 of them were godly kings. They're all of Judah. All the 20 kings of Israel were all very, very ungodly. And Ahab simply was one on the top of that, right on top, or rather right at the bottom. Ahab was influenced very much by his wife, Jezebel, and they were worshipping Baal. Ahab's god was Baal, and his wife Jezebel's god was Asherah, and they were completely off track. And Elijah goes to King Ahab and tells him, "Don't be any more rain in the land except at my word." At my word. His word. Can you imagine that? Now, he was a man who was a man of prayer, man of faith. And he said, "At my word." Simply because these people in the Old Testament who walked with God, the prophets of God, they listened to God and spoke out. So God's word became their word. Example is Samuel. As God spoke to him, he responded to God. God called him by name, Samuel, Samuel, 3 times. Next time that he called him, he says, on the advice of Eli, he tells God, "Speak, Lord, a servant is listening. Speak, Lord, a servant is listening." And then God began to speak more. Only when Samuel told God, "Speak, Lord, a servant is listening," the Lord began to speak more. Till then he called him by name for him to respond. 1 Samuel chapter 3, 19, 20, 21 says, "The Lord was with Samuel as he grew up. They let none of his words fall to the ground. And all Israel from Dan to Beersheba recognized Samuel as a prophet. Recognized Samuel as attested as a prophet of God. The Lord continued to appear at Shiloh, and he revealed himself to Samuel through his word. And Samuel's word came to all Israel." God revealed himself to Samuel through his word, and Samuel's word came to all Israel. What does it mean? It means when God spoke to Samuel, God's word was received by Samuel. When he spoke out, it became Samuel's word. So when Elijah tells Ahab, there won't be any more rain in the land except at my word, what it meant was, God will speak to me and I'll speak out. When God spoke to him, he believed. That's why he was righteous. That's why in James 5:16, after speaking about righteous man's prayer, next verse talks about Elijah. Among all the people in the Bible, Elijah, a man like one of us, righteous by faith. So when God spoke to Elijah, he tells Ahab, "Don't be any more rain except at my word." Because God must have spoken to Elijah and said, "Don't be any more rain." He took God's word very seriously and spoke out saying, "At my word only there'll be rain." And then what happens? The Lord tells Elijah after he speaks to Ahab, "Go to Kerith Ravine. It's a place across the river Jordan, and I'm going to feed you there." Because he knew that not going to be any more rain. It's going to be a famine. Elijah had to be fed. And God tells him, "Go to the region of Kerith Ravine. I've ordered the ravens to feed you." I've ordered the ravens to feed you. What does it mean? It means ravens can listen to God's voice. Not an audible voice. They listen to God's orders. Everything in the world is in God's hands. Psalm 24 verse 1. Earth is the Lord, everything that's in it, the world and all the people live in it. I've ordered the ravens to feed you. So Elijah goes by faith. When God spoke to him, he believed. So he went. As simple as that. Went to the region of Kerith Ravine, there's a brook there. And then he drank from the brook. And the ravens brought him meat and bread. There's some noise coming. Could please switch off the audios, please? Some noise is coming from someone. I don't know who it is. Please mute all your audios, please.
Sorry, Anna, I'm taking care of it.
Thank you. So the ravens fed Elijah both morning and evening. Twice a day he ate bread and meat, and he drank from that river. Then the famine in the land. And then when the famine was continuing, what happened was it dried up, the brook dried up. Then the Lord told Elijah, go to Sidon. I've ordered the widow to take care of you. Zarephath, she went to Zarephath. That is somewhere in the northwest, in Sidon, the coast. From Kiryat Ravine across the river Jordan, he goes all the way to Sidon to be looked after by a widow who has a son. An amazing story that is. Look at this 17th chapter of please read it, long story. And there he's fed by this widow. And she goes there, sees the widow and said, give me some bread. And she said, I have no bread. I have only one some little bit of flour and some oil. If I'm going to make bread for myself and my son, they're going to die. And Elijah says, no, do as I say. Look at the confidence of this man, faith. He knew what God has spoken to him. He says, no, you do what I say, give me bread, and this jar of flour will not run out, nor will the oil run out. And that lady has simple faith. What little flour she's got, she makes a bread for Elijah and gives to Elijah instead of herself and the son. And just as Elijah spoke to this widow of Zarephath, the jar of oil did not, the jug of oil did not empty, nor the jar of flour ever finish. God provided, miraculously provided. One more amazing miracle took place. After some time, that little boy died, the child died, and then the widow was upset. Is it why you came all the way here to see my son is dead? Elijah lies on top of the child, sets in blood 3 times, and then the child comes back to life. Amazing miracles. Every time he goes by the leading of the Lord, God must have spoken to him, and he acted by faith. Telling people no rain except at my word was by faith. Going to Kiryat Ravine was by faith. Going to Sidon was by faith. And telling that lady, this jar will never run out. Nor this jug of oil will not run out. So he knew what God was going to do. Fellowship with God. Prayer means fellowship with God. And he was a man of prayer, means a man of fellowship with God. In fellowship, in prayer itself, is always talking to God and listening to God. That's my perspective of prayer. We say prayer as its petition, but actually fellowship with God. And then what happens? Elijah goes to Ahab, 18th chapter of 1 Kings. Amazing story. Goes to Ahab, tells them, get all the prophets. 400 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah, or other way around. Asherah is Jezebel's god, and Baal is Ahab's god. And then there's a confrontation in the Mount Carmel. We all know the story very well. How they tried their best to make a sacrifice to their gods, nothing happens. And as Elijah calls upon God and sacrifices bulls on the altar, the fire of God comes upon that place and consumes the sacrifice, even though he had poured so much of water on the sacrifice. Look at the faith of this man. He was supposed to make a sacrifice and call fire from God to burn the sacrifice. And the same thing was supposed to be done by the prophets of Baal and Asherah. They kept on calling upon their God, no fire came. And then after they finished, and Elijah is mocking them. Oh, he must have gone to sleep. The God must have gone to sleep. When it came to Elijah's turn, the God of Israel, he purposely pours water on the sacrifice. And then calls upon God. And the fire consumed the sacrifice. And to prove to people who the true God is. And the people are completely convicted of what they had believed earlier. And they put their faith in the God of Israel. And then, of course, Elijah ensured that the prophets of Baal and of Asherah were all killed as a testimony for misleading people. And then what happens? There's anticlimax. When Jezebel comes to know that the prophets of Asherah and Baal have been killed, he says, may my gods deal with severely, if but tomorrow this prophet doesn't become like this man Elijah, doesn't become like one of the prophets. She's threatening him. Let my God deal with me severely. If but tomorrow this man, meaning Elijah, will become like, if you don't become like one of my prophets. She's threatening him. And look at Elijah now, a man who seen an amazing miracle, a man who had been having fellowship with God and spoke at God's commandment, at God's instructions. Now is, when he hears that Jezebel wants to kill him, he's so scared. It says in 1 Kings 19 chapter, verse 3, he ran for his life. He ran for his life. Before that, God had told him that he wants to rain upon the land. In 1 Kings 18 chapter, read about how God tells him, I'm going to rain upon the land. First, Elijah said, no rain except at my word. Then God speaks to Elijah and tells him, I'm going to send rain. Elijah, of course, tells Ahab about what's going to happen. But then after he comes to know that Jezebel wants to kill him, he is so afraid of one lady, one woman, and ran for his life. 1 Kings 19 chapter verse 3. He ran for his life. That shows the humanity of Elijah. Now we understand why James writes, there's a man like one of us. So many of us get scared after one amazing miracle takes place. We still get scared for our own life. When it came to ministering to people, ministering to Ahab, Elijah had so much of faith. He was the instrument of God in speaking God's word to other people, to the nation, to the king. When it came to his own life in terms of threats, he got scared. So afraid of Jezebel, he ran for his life. Where did he go? He goes to Beersheba. Where is Beersheba? Actually, Mount Carmel is a little north. It's further up, there is a north. It's northeast of Caesarea and quite up north. And from all the north, it goes to southernmost part of Israel, Beersheba. Very often you find in the Bible the term Dan to Beersheba, Dan to Beersheba. It means like India we say, Kashmir to Kanyakumari. Up north is Dan, down south is Beersheba. So this man, prophet, amazing prophet of God, praise God for his life, man like one of us, after seeing an amazing miracle take place, after hearing from God's heart about God's plan, no rain, rain is going to come. He walked in step with the Spirit. He told the widow, your oil will not run out, nor your flour in the jug, in the jar. It will not run out. You do what I say. So much of confidence what God has spoken to him. Remember, whatever he spoke, being a prophet, came from God. Now when this lady threatens him, so afraid he runs for his life all the way to Beersheba he goes. And he's sulking there. An angel appears to him. What are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here? And then get up, eat. He was hungry and the angel doesn't eat. He takes some food to eat, ready for him, kept there by the Lord through the angel. He gets some strength. Then he goes all the way to Mount Horeb, where the commandments are given. Laws of Moses. Law of Moses given at Horeb. Where's Horeb? Mount Sinai? In Arabia. So from north of Israel, he goes to Beersheba, sulks there. Then he takes some food to eat, goes all the way to Arabia, mountain of God. And there's a wind comes in the mountain. Lord is not in the wind. Earthquake, Lord is not in the earthquake. A fire comes, no, God is not in the fire. Hear the gentle voice whisper. What are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here? And as if to say, running away from Jezebel. You saw a miracle I did through you. Now one lady is making you run away like this. What are you doing here? And he's complaining, oh, he's killed all the prophets. I'm the only one left. All the prophets are killed. And God said, no, 7,000 people I kept for myself. Do not bow down to Baal. Don't say only you're the only one left. How many times when you go through difficulties, we say, why only me, Lord? Why only me? And even he said that, I'm the only one left. They all have been killed. And the Lord said, I've got 7,000 people not bow down to Baal. And then, as he is sulking in the corner, God speaks to him. He tells him very, very clearly. And then only he goes to Elisha. God tells him about Elisha and the king to anoint Elisha as the next successor to Elijah. Now, the thing is this. Here is a man who's walking with God in terms of hearing God's voice. Righteous because he believed what he heard, spoke what God told him, so much so, God's word became his word. And what he spoke came from God. So in the Bible, in the New Testament, that he prayed that there won't be rain. Actually, what happened was he was listening to God and prayers, fellowship with God. And when he heard from God that no more rain, he said, no more rain except at my word. So he knew that when the rain is going to come again, God will again speak to him. It says in the Bible, the book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 7, surely the Lord doesn't do anything without revealing his plans to servants and prophets. God does not do anything except without revealing his plans to servants, the prophets. So when you walk closely with God today we are so blessed. We are both priests and we can be prophets. We can seek the gift of prophecy from God. All of us are priests, meaning we intercede on behalf of people to God. The difference between a priest and a prophet is this. A priest intercedes on behalf of people to God. A prophet intercedes on behalf of God to people. There's a difference. We're all called to be priests. We pray for people, we intercede for them. First Peter 2:9 says, we are chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. A people belonging to God. All of us, all believers. And when we seek the gift of prophecy, the Apostle Paul exhorts the church in Corinth to seek spiritual gifts, desire spiritual gifts, especially the gift of prophecy. When you have the gift of prophecy, what happens? We hear from God and speak out. We are so blessed today, they can speak on behalf of people to God, intercede for people. God hears our prayers because he loves us. And we can speak on behalf of God to people. We're a blessed people. So just like Elijah heard from God and spoke out, and great things happen by faith, they can ask God for the same faith. I would recommend to you to ask God not only faith to minister to other people like Elijah did. Learn from Elijah's life how he didn't have faith in the sense for realizing that God would protect him. Does not fear Jezebel. Who's more powerful, Jezebel or God? Running away from Jezebel, ran for his life. His life is in God's hands. And God, in a way, I think God has a sense of humor. Because Elijah never died at all. Two people in the Bible never died. Elijah and Enoch was taken up into heaven. Here's a man fearing for his life and running from Jezebel. God wanted to make him understand, look here, why are you running from your life? You're going to be a person who won't even die. I'll take you to heaven. Taken up into heaven in a whirlwind, fire, chariots of fire. God has a sense of humor. A prophet who was so scared of a woman, he ran for his life all the way from Mount Carmel to first Beersheba, then to Mount Horeb. And ultimately, when he went up to heaven, he thought, why did I fear for my life? I'm serving God and he is ordained for me. I will not die at all. And Enoch and me will not die, but taken up into heaven. What a lesson for us. Everything is known for us, for our education, for our faith to grow. So what I would suggest to all of us is, Elijah was a man like one of us, and we identify with him because we also sulk sometimes. We also run for our life. We also fear people. He was all like, even Elijah feared Jezebel. And there may be Jezebels in your life, maybe. You think, oh, I'm like Elijah, Elijah like me. But are we like Elijah when it comes to ministering by faith? Are we like him when you can hear the word of God and act upon God's word? Not only for other people's sake, for our own life. You should learn from that. Lord, tell God, Lord, I want to have strong faith, Lord, not only for the ministry, to be able to hear from you, Lord, and speak out. Speak out boldly what you tell me, even about the future. I want to prophesy. And Lord, in this area, let me not be like Elijah. Today, we don't fear any man or any woman. Book of Proverbs, 29 chapter, verse 25. Fear of man will prove to be a snare. Fear of man will prove to be a snare. It's a trap. We can always console ourselves. Oh, even Elijah feared. What's wrong if I fear? Yes, he was a human being. A man serving an awesome God. Ordinary man like us, serving an awesome God. He had his weaknesses. Even after a miracle, amazing miracle took place. Even after that, fearing a human being. And when we fear human beings, we think it's normal. And we console ourselves. Even Elijah feared. I'm not like Elijah. Why can't he be like Elijah and the things he did right? The Bible is full of people of God who are examples for us to follow and some not to follow. Same person can be once followed, others other not followed, like Elijah. Let's follow him in his faith for ministry, for doing what God told him to do. Let's not follow him in fearing people. Because today we know God is not only for us, he is in us. Romans 8:31. If God be for us, who can be against us? And he lives in us. Wherever we go, we take him, we carry him. What is the temples of the Holy Spirit? Not only that, he surrounds us. Psalm 125, verse 1 and 2. Those who trust in the Lord like Mount Zion, which can't be shaken but endures forever. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, the Lord surrounds his people, both now and forevermore. The Lord surrounds us. His angels take care of us. I believe, and people ask me, how are you managing alone, brother, in your house? I tell them, many people ask me that. I'm not alone. Lord is in me, according to his word. His angels surround me. It says in Psalm 34, verse 7. Angel Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. Angel Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. Now coming back to Elijah and righteousness, we are made righteous by the blood of Christ. So because we have the blood of Christ cleansing us of sin, we are made righteous. Righteousness is a person, he is Christ. 1 Corinthians 1:30 says, Christ has become for us wisdom from God. There is our righteousness, holiness, and redemption. Because we are righteous, and the word of God says, the prayer of righteous man is powerful and effective. So our prayers will be powerful and effective. And I want to qualify prayer by saying fellowship with God. When Elijah told Ahab, don't be any more rain in the land except at my word, what he meant was, when God speaks to him, I'll speak out, and then God will become my word, and then I'll tell you when rain is going to come. It so happened, look at the 18th chapter of 1 Kings, God spoke to him after about 3 years. James said 3.5 years. About 3 years, so 3.5 years, let us say. Bible can't be wrong. God told Elijah, I'm going to send rain on the land. And then he goes into the Ahab again. So basically, it is fellowship with God and ministering to people as God speaks to us. But then after all that, the lesson for us is don't live by miracles. Live by intimacy with God. Live by the word, spirit, and faith. Elijah saw amazing miracles. It came to his own life, his own personal walk with God and looking at people. He was afraid of Jezebel and ran for his life, it says. I'm always amazed by that. 1 Kings 19:3. How often we run away from circumstances? May not be people, circumstances. Face up. We have learned from Elijah what he did rightly and learn what he did wrong, which is not being afraid of a person. It's a snare, it's a trap. So no fear for us today, no unhealthy fear. In Psalm 34 verse 4, David writes, Psalm 34 verse 4, I sought the Lord, he answered me, delivered me from all my fears. So today as God's people, we can use the authority God has given us and pray and act upon what God speaks to us and see miracles happen. A few years back, I was in Uganda. I think I shared this before, I don't know, the Suma, which other meeting. I was having a meeting in Kampala, capital of Uganda, and I was in a place, in somebody's house I was staying. And the meeting was supposed to take place in a particular place, and they had to change the venue because that was actually a day when Bob Clinton happened to be coming to Kampala. And because he's the president of the United States, there was a lot of security. And he changed the route. Last minute, they changed the route. So what the Secret Service do, they changed the route because somebody might know about the route. And the route happened to be where the meeting is going to take place. They changed it. And then they gave us a new place. So they didn't give us the place we're supposed to have the meeting, new place. And as I'm waiting in the afternoon praying for the meeting, I realized that where the meeting is taking place, there was a heavy rain taking place in that area. I knew something is wrong. Simply because so much of rain at 3:30 in the afternoon, 5:30 they had to bring in all the equipment for the music and worship team, 6:30 the meeting, they had to bring in the equipment and set up the sound system. And heavy rain was going on. Around 4:30, I came out of my balcony, saw the area where the meeting is going to take place. I realized this is going to be very difficult now. So much of rain. Then I prayed, Lord, this meeting should not be hindered. Then I came out the balcony and I spoke to the clouds, move in Jesus' name. As God spoke to my heart and said, authority I have given you to come back in anything that comes in the way of my will. My will is to have the meeting tonight, and the rain is coming to thwart it. And I spoke to the cloud based on what God spoke to me. Said, move in Jesus' name. Then I went back to prayer. After half an hour I came back, I saw a perfect circle in the sky. Perfect circle. Rain everywhere except that place. I was amazed to see a circle in the rain. And sun coming through that circle. Went for the meeting. It so happened that area, there was a slope. All the rainwater that came earlier had drained away. It was absolutely dry. We had a wonderful meeting in Kampala. Same God we serve, all of us today. Is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So when God speaks to us, we can tell people at God's word, He spoke to me. I'm saying this to you. Don't speak on your own. Till God speaks, you don't act upon it. Don't tell God is saying, till unless God speaks. Especially when it comes to praying for healing. So often people give false hopes. Go to be healed. Unless God speaks to you, don't say that. Healing may take place after some time, not at that point of time. So again, there are many people make mistakes about healing. I tell people, God is able to heal you. I'm going to pray. Sometimes God says very clearly, He's going to be healed. Then I tell them, Lord heals you. Like Peter told Aeneas in Acts 9:34. Aeneas, Jesus Christ heals you. Now, a few years back, 2 years back, I was praying for some people who were having cancer. And I knew that 3 will die, 3 will survive. Those who survive, I told them, you're going to be healed. And they were healed. Other than that, I didn't say anything. I only prayed that they would receive Christ before they leave. God told me they are going to survive. But I said, Lord, please Lord, let them accept your Savior and Lord before they leave this world. Praise God, all 3 got saved. They got saved and they left this world. Other 3 got healed. So when I'm not sure, I keep quiet. For all of us, all of us can hear God's voice because we are God's children. John 10:27. My sheep listen to my voice. So my recommendation to you is be like Elijah, like unto Elijah, and hearing from God and speaking out to people in the ministry. But don't be like Elijah in fearing people or any circumstance. No fear for us today. David writes in Psalm 34, verse 4, I sought the Lord, he answered me, delivered me from all my fears. Don't fear the future, don't fear people, don't fear anything at all. Don't be anxious about anything at all. Because this New Testament grace. We have been given the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit makes the slave again to fear. Romans 8:15 says, for God did not give a spirit that makes a slave again to fear. No more fear. Earlier we were fearing, not again, not anymore. Because now God lives in us through the Spirit. This is the spirit of sonship. By him we cry, Abba, Father. So we learn from all the examples in the Bible, every member of the church, of the body of Christ, every man, woman of God in the Old Testament, we can learn from them. What to apply, what not to apply. In 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 20-21 is written, in a large house, articles of both gold and silver and wood and stone. Articles of gold and silver, wood and stone. Some for noble purposes, some for ignoble purposes. So, the example of God, they're all in the house, all vessels in the house. Some to be followed, some not to be followed. Or, like Elijah, some to be followed in the right things they did, not to be followed in the wrong things they did. So, in the case of Elijah, we learn from him that imitate his faith for the ministry and for his life. Don't imitate him in the case of fearing people, especially Jezebel. Where is the question of Jezebel killing Elijah when Elijah is God's child? And I'm sure Elijah, before he taken up to heaven, must have thought, sometime back I thought I'm going to die at the hands of Jezebel. I'm not even going to die. He's taking me to heaven. And even the other prophets knew that. When Elisha was following Elijah, hoping that the mantle fall upon him, and he'll have the same anointing, double portion of anointing, one double portion of anointing. The other prophets also told Elisha, you know, God is going to take your master from here. They knew he's going to go. Elijah must have known. So how wonderful it is to know that man who feared a human being didn't die at all. I'm not saying we are going to die. We'll die probably before Christ comes. But that doesn't matter. We don't fear any man. Fear of man will prove to be a snare. So fundamental question is, are we like Elijah in his faith for the ministry? That's why it says Hebrews 13 chapter, verse 7 and 8. Remember, Jesus spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of the way of life and imitate their faith. Next verse says, verse 8, Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. The same Lord who worked in and through those people in the Old Testament time will work on us today, will work on other people tomorrow. Look at how beautifully when he was sulking and complaining and getting in self-pity mode, I'm the only one left, everyone has been killed by Jezebel. Look at the way God comforts. What are you doing here, Elijah? And the angel first eat. God isn't rebuking Elijah through an angel. He's in Beersheba, sulking, sleeping. Get up, eat, get some strength. Then there's a cake kept there, cake of flour kept there. Eats that, gets strength. He goes 40 days, 40 nights, he goes to Mount Horeb. There is sulking, expecting God to speak through the fire, through earthquake, through wind. No, a gentle whisper, gentle voice. What are you doing here, Elijah? Maybe somewhere else, you are here. How gently God speaks. And today especially, the Holy Spirit who lives in us speaks so gently. Romans 2:4 says, the kindness of God leads us to repentance. The kindness of God, not the stick of God. So I'm sure all of us at different times in our life, one moment we see miracles happen, on a high. Next moment, we are down, maybe running for our life, but depressed. Let's be constantly walking with the Holy Spirit, in which case you'll be always encouraged. He's an encourager. And of course, God will speak in a gentle voice in our hearts. He lives in us. And like Elijah, we can hear God's voice in a gentle whisper. Not an audible voice. Don't expect a spectacular manner of God speaking. Elijah expecting God to speak in the wind, in the earthquake, in the fire on the mountain. Nothing happened. A gentle whisper, gentle voice. 3 times I heard God's audible voice. Gentle voice, sweet voice. Raj, get up. Early morning. Raj, get up. Raj. So beautiful. And we can learn from all these people in the Bible. Every one of them have the weaknesses except Jesus. In him there was no sin. Other prophets had weaknesses. Learn from them what we have to follow and don't learn what we should not follow. Take the example of golden vessel and leave the example of the ignoble vessel. Then we'll be perfectly fine in our walk with God and be a blessing wherever we go as He blesses us. Let's pray.